Okay, we're going to get started before everybody, finishes lunch, so we can kind of, it is being recorded, so if some people need to rewatch it or send it out or, all this stuff. But anyway, so thanks for being here. Thanks for watching it online. Later, we really appreciate it. We, as mentioned previously, we're trying to figure out the rhythm of at least 2, maybe 3 updates a year. Trying to kind of find that right bandwidth on that side of things. So largely today, just the format, we're going to go through the different ministry division groups and have a couple updates from different ministry division leaders. So I'm going to start just as a quick reminder, if the remote is working. I don't know. Well, yeah, just thank you, babe. And I'm going to tell a funny story to stall. I don't know. We're gonna go with the expertise today. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so just a couple of the 5 basic ministry divisions that we're looking at. So large group, which is like Sunday services. That's what we're usually thinking of there. I'm the one leading that one. Small group, Kevin Lawson is leading the small groups. That includes Bible studies. That includes life groups. That includes even some like men's ministry, women's ministry side of things. Outreach, I'll be doing the update for that, but that one's in progress. Youth programs, which primarily involves Catalyst, Grace Kids, and then the outreach is like through those. And then shared thank you. We're gonna do a group update. Okay, you're gonna help me out with some words here. I'll buy a vowel. Yes, shared services, which is Bruce Audie. He's not with us this morning, but I think they'll be back, sometime next month or so. So, large group. Just a couple of quick updates on that. So we obviously wrapped up the series from creation to the Christ child. The goal with that was to allow the church family an opportunity to be more familiarized with the Old Testament, to walk through the Old Testament together. Obviously, we did not cover every verse. We did not even cover every book, but trying to capture some of those main themes, some of those promises of God that we see developed and come to fruition at the birth of Jesus. And then as we've been going through the Gospels, the book of Mark, obviously some passages are exceptionally easy, like today, so those were fun. But also looking at the Gospel of Mark, and really, I hope we're taking advantage of reading through the section together, so that we're reading through the entire book. We cannot cover. I got interrogated last night why we skipped the story, and I was like, well, there's a bunch of stuff that we're going to have to skip, even as short as Mark is, in order to kind of get through this in that timeline. So we are not skipping any stories I said we're not doing it on purpose. We kind of are, but we're trying to make sure we capture the major themes. So like if we see some healing stories, we're not going to cover every healing. We're not going to cover every demon possession story. But we're trying to make sure we don't miss any of the big themes throughout the book of Mark. So that's the goal there. And preparing our hearts as we're walking through that towards Holy Week. So it's hard to believe, but maybe not. I don't know. I feel very mixed this year. It's man, spring is starting. It's January 15th, and then all of a sudden we get snow, and then back to spring a week later. So I don't know. I'm ready for. I think every year I'm ready for Holy Week, for Easter, Palm Sunday. But that's something that we're especially, I feel like this year maybe more so, just because of the weather. You're used to a certain sequence, and this year we haven't had that. So we'll be having Palm Sunday. I believe we're planning on a baptism service on Palm Sunday. And so that should be always awesome. And then last year we tried for the first time, and we had a really great response to that, was the Good Friday service, the Remember the Darkness service. And so we plan to do that again this year. I believe that's at 6:30 on Friday night. I'm going to need some help. I'm sorry, guys. This is so Friday night and then Easter. And then we also will plan to have the meditations Monday through Thursday. So Palm Sunday, obviously, is on a Sunday. The morning meditations Monday through Thursday. Those are live streamed and in person. Friday, there's no Friday morning event, but Friday night is Remember the Darkness. and then we have the baptism planning on that on Palm Sunday, but Easter kind of capping that week off. So I hope it's something I think we can really. It's easy to take for granted, and that's why we put the extra intentionality around that. The entirety of our faith and our hope and our salvation rests on the resurrection of Jesus, and so the time and the energy spent towards that is really important time and energy. And so it is a very busy week, and we acknowledge that. And we're not trying to just create busyness, but we are trying to make sure that we're adding a certain amount of deliberation in there into these opportunities. So, and along with that, I think there's some really great outreach opportunities because we have like different levels. We've got the live streamed devotionals. You can bring 7 o'clock. I know it's early for some. Some people are already going 4 or 5 hours by then, so I know everyone's got their own perspective on that. But there's some opportunities there, and then even the Remember the Darkness one, I think, is a really impactful opportunity just to reflect on the sacrifice of Jesus for us and what our salvation cost. So all of those pieces, I hope you don't think of them as just an opportunity for worship and reflection for you, but also an opportunity to invite others, engage others, and to share the reason for the hope that lies within us. So, and that is pretty much the sort of just some updates on the large group. So I'm going to ask Kevin now to kind of give some small group updates. And I don't know. Sorry. And yes, I should have had the microphone. So, any questions on large group? Paul? Perfect. So we're going to do small groups, and then we're going to youth programs next, and then we'll get to outreach. Yes. Oh. So, yeah, that's so. Why was holding a microphone in your hand considered bad? I don't know. My quick answer. So, I mean, I was like a kid and then a teen, and it wasn't the most important. I think probably because Elvis did it, it was bad. It's probably the like. Pam. Oh yeah, that actually probably. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that probably is part of that. Yeah. And then again, like it's not a bad distinction to try to think about. Like, hey, is it a performance or are we actually worshiping? That's a good distinction to think about. But like, is that a categorical rule always and forever? I don't think so. But anyway, Kevin.
I am now performing. This. All right. So quick update. And when we talk about small groups, primarily we're talking about adult ministries in the church. So this includes things like Sunday mornings, we have our prayer corner. We have about 4 or 5 people who have met, gone through some orientation and training, who then make themselves available on the Sunday morning for prayer after the service. And most weeks we get 1 or 2 people who will come by and either would like to be prayed for or to be prayed with. You know, either way. It's a good ministry. It's really significant one-on-one ministry with somebody. And I would encourage you, we would love to have 3 or 4 more people join us in that, and you would go through some orientation and training so that you know how to go about it. And if you're interested, please come and see me. Bible study groups. We've had several the last half year or so. Sunday morning there is a life group that meets here at 8:15. Right now they're going through a study on the life of Abraham, so we're in Genesis. Monday nights there has been a women's study on communication that was led by Jesse and Liz, and that has wrapped up, I understand. They've taken a break for a while, and then they'll consider another possible study. Tuesday nights and Friday mornings, there's been women's studies. Back in the fall, the focus was on the God who comforts, and right now they're studying the book of Philippians. And then twice a month, and now we're shifting over to Wednesday nights instead of Tuesdays, we have a men's Everyday Discipleship for Men group. And that started in September and wraps up in May. So that's what's been going on in small groups. And then most weeks, it hasn't been every week, but most weeks we have after all discussion right after the service up here in this corner. And Matt Blaine has been leading that. And we would like that to be a regular. We'll make sure we get the slides up each week so that it's part of the announcements. And it's a great opportunity just to follow up, to clarify things that were said, maybe clarify something from the passage that may not have been clear to you, and a chance to then reflect on application. How do we respond in light of this? Thinking about in the future, we're working on some community service opportunities of making the whole congregation aware of a variety of ways to get involved, to be of service in our community. I like to think of it as living out the call to be salt and light in the community around us. And so you can expect to see more about that in the next month or so. A couple areas, if you have some interest, I'd love to talk with you. For example, interest in a seniors ministry, thinking about perhaps a group that would meet once a month, possibly over lunch. Now, when I say seniors, that's anybody older than me. Actually, it has caught up with me. And so really, anybody 60 and up. I'm trying to make sure we keep this working. So if you're interested in helping to organize a group like that, the idea is not just getting together for a meal, but it's ministry to and ministry by. How do we continue to activate ourselves in ministry and serve? Also, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, interest in young adults ministry. I understand, I was talking with somebody recently that at University of New England, right here in Biddeford, Cru has started up again. Campus Crusade is the older name for it. Now they go by the short version, Cru. It's a Christian ministry on campus, and I'm working on making connection with those who are leading that to see how might we as a congregation be an encouragement and help to them. And then new life groups. I'm looking way ahead right now, next fall, and the potential for some more small group gatherings with a few different kinds of purpose. Some could be a chance to talk through and work through the sermon in more depth. Others could be a Bible study. Others, there might be another issue or topic of study, more of a topical approach. But if that's of interest, I'm looking at the spring as a time when we could do some training together to help people become comfortable in leading a small group through a study together or a discussion of the sermon together. Again, if you have some interest, please talk to me. You're not making any commitment. I'd love to talk with you, answer any questions, and then that will help you discern a little bit more of whether that's something to take on or not. All right? I think that's it. Questions? Hearing none, I will pass it off.
Thanks. I was asked to share some highlights of... Hi, Carlene. I didn't get a hug. I'm sorry. I'll be back on my way up. Okay, sorry. So starting with Grace Kids. Grace Kids is our birth to 5th grade. They meet every week. My biggest highlight of our Grace Kids is our team. I mean, I love the kids. I do love your kids, but I love our team. And we have a small but faithful few that show up every single week so that others can show up once a month. And that team is amazing. And recently, I just asked them for more because we as a team shrunk. So the core group of the team rose up and gave more. And if you're asking me a highlight of Grace, it's our team. And then we also have amazing student leaders. So there were some weeks, our hard, fast rule is that there must be 2 adults in the room at every time. That's just a safety thing. A child chokes, we need a runner or whatnot. There were weeks this last fall where we didn't have 2 adults. Sorry to admit that on camera. We had cameras in the rooms, but there were weeks that we didn't have 2 adults in the room, which kills my soul a little bit. But we had youth leaders. Our teens and tweens stepped up, and there were weeks that I was going to close the doors because it wasn't safe to have the kids in there, and we had teens step up and say, I'll serve this week, and be that second body so that we had a runner. So if you're asking me highlights of Grace Kids, it's also our youth leaders. In the fall, we had a pancake party. This was a time where we launched, we said goodbye to summer and we said hello to fall as families. It was a great time that the men of the church came and served pancakes, and that was really fun to have them be involved in Grace Kids in that way. And then Grace Kids kind of led up hosting the Harvest Host that we did on Halloween. And that was a fun night where we saw community kids playing football with our GracePoint adults and sitting by the fire with adults and just interacting with our neighbors that are right across the street. Do you know how many kids are right across the street? There's so many right there, right across the street. And all of them need Jesus. And so Harvest Host was an opportunity for us to get outside and be like, hi, we're here, and throw football with them. It was amazing. And for all that served, thank you. And then this fall, we had a couple of family services. What I love about family services is I am passionate, and if you challenge me on this, you'll see my passion come out, so I encourage you not to. I am passionate about teaching children on their age-appropriate level, which Andrew is great, but Laurel is bored right now. I'm not speaking on her age-appropriate level because I'm not singing and dancing. So I am very passionate about kids not being out of service to be quiet and make it more convenient for the adults, but I'm passionate about the kids being taught on their level so that we are being responsible as a church and giving them access to Jesus on a level that they can understand. Anyway, see, I told you not to get me started. And you didn't. I just did it to myself. So twice this fall, we had family services. We had the Thanksgiving and the Christmas Eve service. And those were 2 times in which the kiddos came in, and they made a ton of chaos, and it was wonderful. I don't know if you got to look over and see some of them worshiping and some of them asking their questions, but I just want to say thank you for inviting them in, welcoming them in. I want to say thank you for smiling at the mama who has a toddler crawling all over her and a baby cooing and drooling on her. Thank you for encouraging her with a smile and not a judgment look. And for those of you that look at the dad who's running to the bathroom multiple times with his preschooler during 1 hour, and to the dad who's fielding a bunch of questions from his elementary child, thank you. Thank you for encouraging our parents when they bring their kids to service. And then the last thing we did this fall, winter, in Grace Kids is we shuffled. I don't know if you have had a chance to walk back there, but we took all the rooms and we did a fruit basket upset. We switched them all around, shuffled the groups, and what that allowed us to do is provide a rec room, a place for our teens to go. In the history of the church, our teens have never had a room to call their own. They've always kind of met in the commons, which is a word for a lobby and a hallway, and they've never complained once. So it was a great joy to, since our child population is down a little bit, to create a space for them to have a home. And a more comfortable place for after-alls than to be sitting around in a room that was overly sized for them. So we shuffled, and I think it's a better fit back there. I would love, love, love for you guys to come and see. I know some of you have never even been in the back of the building. There's like 1/3 of the building you've never even stepped foot in. Okay, another soapbox. We won't go there. All right, so then Catalyst. I know, Mark knows. Catalyst. I was to talk about Catalyst, and if I were a great youth ministry division leader, I would have reached out to Matt and Liz, and I didn't have time. But I'm in their pocket, and so I think I can represent them when I say that our Catalyst group right now is comprised of about 10 of our church kids. Each of those church kids has school kids that they bring on the regular, which is pretty fantastic to watch. They put me to shame because I haven't brought a community, non-church person into the church in a long time, and yet our teens are doing it. So that's pretty amazing. That's a highlight to me, is that our kids are evangelizing better than me. Another highlight is our team. So again, we have 3 people, Matt, Liz, and Lydianne, who every week for the last several years show up on Wednesday nights and invest in these kiddos. So I'm very thankful for them. And then behind the scenes are the people who take care of Matt and Liz's children every week when they come. And that is a team of people. It takes a community to raise children, and so she's got a team that helps her with that. But thankful for our team. This fall, we were privileged to have some of you give testimony to the teens. In the fall, Matt Garner has like a busy season at his work, and so he reached out to some of you and asked you if you would provide testimony to the children, and that was pretty impactful for our teens. So we hope to repeat that. If you are brave enough and willing to share your testimony, reach out to Matt Garner and say, I have a burden for teens and I'd love to share my testimony. The teens weren't scary, I promise. They weren't as scary as you might think. But that was very impactful. And then we were able to send our kids to camp, and for those of you that financially gave so that kids could go, thank you very much. Camp it's like a pressure cooker, for the 10 Christian kids together to gel as a group, to bond with their leaders, and then to grow in Christ. They're sitting under some impactful sermons that are, again, age appropriate. No offense, Pastor Andrew. I think you do pretty well with teens, but you're not Duffy. And so I would love to tell you testimony of the kids who went to camp. And it goes like this. Go ask them. I'm not going to tell you how camp was. I want you to walk up to one of our teens and say, hey, how was Camp Berea? And they're going to say this. They're going to go, fine, good. And you're going to be like, punk, right? Okay, so here's what I want you to do instead. I want you to walk up to one of our teens and say, hey, who was Duffy at Camp Berea? Just ask them that. And then I want you to ask them, which of the youth leaders did the polar plunge? Just ask them those 2 questions, okay? Spoiler alert, it wasn't Liz. Ask them, who is Duffy at Camp Berea, and which of the leaders did the polar plunge? And that's how you will learn how camp impacted our teens. My last highlight for Catalyst is definitely the teen servants that we have. I don't know if you've watched, but we have teens that are at the door. They're at the sound team. They are ushering. They are prepping communion. They are leading in Grace Kids. And you better watch out, Pastor Andrew, because I know one of them's coming for your job too. I think we've got a couple that are eyeing up positions on the music team. So our teens, here I go again. They put me to shame with the way they serve. They serve so well. And percentage-wise, I told you we have 10 teens from the church, and then we have several from the community that join regularly. But our 10 from the church, percentage-wise, you've heard the churchy thing, right? 20% carry 80% of the load. Our teens are batting 10 for 10. All 10 of them have monthly regular serving positions, and many of them do more than that. So I think that puts us as adults to shame, because I don't think the adult large group are batting 10 for 10. So if it's a competition of Andrew and I'm winning. All right, so ways that you can get involved. Always room for you in our Sunday services. There's room for you at the check-in kiosk. I I've started teaching again on the regular in classes. So Hannah and I are kind of struggling to man the computers the way we used to. So if anybody wants to just sit there and type in kids' names, you don't even have to talk to the kids. I mean, it'd be nice, but you don't have to talk. You don't have to talk to the kids. You don't technically even have to talk to the parents. Just type in the name, hand on the sticker, maybe a smile, and then, it'd be a huge blessing to Hannah and I. And then we also have an opportunity for cards. If some of you would like to be really behind the scenes and stay at home and just write birthday cards and cards of encouragement when we had someone lose a pet this week, and send them a card saying, I'm sorry you lost your pet bunny. Things like that are a big deal to a kid. They want to get mail. So if you would like to take up the card ministry, I will gladly hand that over to you. Just let me know. And then if you would like to sponsor snacks for Grace Kids and After-Alls, their favorite thing are chips. Don't get a big bag because they will eat the entire thing. The variety pack is what we go after. And then, again, if you would like to give testimony in Catalyst, Matt Garner is the man to see, and that's a really huge way that you can impact our teens. So that's your youth programs in a nutshell.
Okay, shared services, we don't have a lot of updates there other than particularly Bruce has put a lot of work in trying to get everything as energy efficient as possible. So new thermostats, new lights, and it actually has really made a pretty big difference on some of the costs. So we were trying to be careful before, but they make such smarter thermostats and stuff now. And so anyway, a big appreciation to the work that he's done there. And he worked really, I think even to the day he left, he was kind of fiddling with stuff to try to get everything managed and really put as many resources towards ministry and not, we like the oil guy and the electric person just fine, but that's not really where we'd rather spend the money. So outreach, a couple things, and some of these are there's gonna be a little bit of overlap here, and there should be because it's all Jesus mission. But so just a quick reminder of our foreign missionaries that we support. So the Fredericos, they're in the Middle East, largely ministering with a student population. It's a challenging environment, but also there's a lot of fruit and a lot of productivity there. So continue to pray for them. With that, they work with other international teams. They're actually with Crew that Kevin mentioned earlier that we have a local organization with, but they're with Crew, and they actually themselves went there Josh went there on a one-year trip, and I think 10 years later he's still there, married and has kids, and so it's cool to never know where God's going to lead a path, but just pray for them. And then the Pates are in Brazil. They're doing a lot of ministry training. So there's a lot of time on the road for Brian in particular. I think he was actually taking a boat ride up the Amazon the other day or something like that. But a lot of the local pastors don't have the access to the training, and that would be helpful. So they'll gather together in a hub in those locations, and then Brian and his organization will go in and do some training and equipping for the pastors there. Some incredibly dedicated ministers of the gospel, and so just awesome to be able to minister to them. And then Anna Ward, my sister, she's back currently working on some medical pieces, but she's hoping to return hopefully at some point in the near future to Kenya. Does a lot of ministry with abused women and orphans. So many of you have supported and prayed for her, and continue to just pray for her as she's sort of in this God-allowed holding period, just recovering from health during this time. So the Harvest Host activity was mentioned under Grace Kids, and this was we kind of pivoted a little bit, so it just is an opportunity to connect them more. We've seen the parking lots filling up in the past years, and I really think by simplifying some of the activities here, it actually allowed a higher number of impact and actually some really great conversations and some connections still changed that. So sometimes, our goal is to minister to the opportunities that God gives us. Sometimes you're not sure always what that looks like. Would a change help? Would it hurt? Is it neutral? I think this one did. That's not a knock on how it went in the past. I think it was a great opportunity in the past. I think the adjustments it made it even enhanced for the future. So I think we'll probably roll something like that, but just an awesome opportunity to connect to the community that was already coming here before we even purchased the building. They were already coming to this parking lot. So to be in a more deliberate way, ministering to families. And part of the connection this year with Grace Kids was it's not a lot of seniors that are going to trick-or-treating. Typically it's usually families with kids, so we're trying to connect to those families with kids, which is kind of why they had more of a Grace Kids influence on it this year. Is like, hey, it's really a ministry targeted towards families with small kids. So teenagers can go buy their own candy because with their own jobs, in my opinion. But that's that. So other Christmas Eve service is it's just. There's several services that I think are still really amazing outreach opportunities. Christmas Eve historically has and remains to be one. It's a great opportunity to share the gospel. People, take an unusual break from the commercialism and merchandise and the chaos, and have an opportunity to hear the real reason for the celebration. Also, this, like let's say last year we did this, and this year we're looking forward to doing this, the Remember the Darkness service. Coupled with Easter, I think is a really, sometimes people aren't really sure what the whole, Easter's a confusing holiday, I think. If you're not a follower of Jesus, it's like bunnies laying chickens, eggs, and candy, and what's going on here. And so to have the opportunity to actually really to share that, and we had several invited that were not believers or kind of young in their faith, and just a really amazing opportunity for ministry last year. And so we're looking forward to doing that again this next year, as well as with Holy Week. So last update, we talked about this, and this has sort of been, I don't say like on my heart for a while. It's probably the best way to say this, is that so there is some real opportunities for outreach and the services, and those are real. We see people come to Jesus through them. They're important, and we're glad to be able to continue doing that. However, it's as important, if not maybe even more so, that we're individually developing in our ability to share the gospel. Like God gives each one of you know people that I do not know, and that includes my wife. So there's people that I won't get to meet, that you won't get to meet, some people that I know, and so we have all these individual opportunities. And I think of like our missionaries, like we're praying for them, encouraging them to go to places that we can't go and share the gospel. But the reality is, like, each one of us go to places that the other people won't be able to go, and have opportunities that other people won't have, and connections that other people won't have. And so how do we develop into becoming a church full of missionaries, that we're each on mission with God? Like, and whatever that sphere might be, that might be work, that might be hobbies, that might be nonprofits. Like, we all have those realms of opportunity that God has given us, and how do we effectively communicate the gospel for those? So, and as a church, and this isn't just a GracePoint thing, but sometimes it's easy to think like outreach is like we do an event kind of a thing. And that is outreach, but that's not exclusively outreach. Outreach is supposed to be the way we live and share the gospel. So we have been looking for, even before last update meeting, and I didn't share it there because we were narrowing in on exploration, but we were looking for some ways to individually equip like us as individual believers better in our training and sharing the gospel in an individual setting. And a couple sort of components that we were looking for with this is, so one, we actually kind of wanted to do it as groups. Like, I think it's great to actually do this in a small group setting, like that we're together learning, because it gives an opportunity for debrief. Even Jesus, he sends the disciples out to has them do ministry, comes back, debriefs with them. It's this like small group setting for this training of collaboration. Second is like we were looking for something that was more a conversational or a life-on-life approach. Some people are very effective with like, hey, let me show you. I don't want to make it sound like I'm making fun of it, but like gimmicky is like sort of the best way. I don't know how to say it. They'll do balloon art and show someone like Jesus. Well, that might work for that person. That's awesome. It doesn't work for most people. And so like we're actually like looking for a conversational approach, like as we're having day-to-day conversations, like how do we share the gospel in there? And my personal belief and experience is that like there are so many conversations around morality and hope and future and destiny and purpose and passion and design that we bump into all the time in our everyday work. And like just being aware of those as like not just statements, but like avenues for the gospel. like opportunities to share the gospel. So a conversational approach was something that was important that we were looking for. We also wanted to develop skill and heart. So there's just these two components. So one, skills, we were looking at this as a skill. So it's not something I think we could successfully say like, hey, let's do a half-day seminar, do a couple knowledge bases, and then boom, we're good to go. Skills take time, they take repetition, they take effort, they take debriefing, and as much as we'd all love to learn a skill, like if you try learning a new instrument, you're not like, hey, watch this 4-hour video and you're good to go. Like, no, like nothing happens in there. Like it takes reps, it takes effort. So we wanted something that was like a skill-based approach, and that's not knocking any of the evangelism seminars or conferences that are out there, but something that has sort of an ongoing approach to it. And then we also wanted to have the heart behind it. So we don't want to just have the abilities to share Jesus. We want to actually have the heart that matches that and conveys the gospel out of a heart of truly caring and having been truly impacted by the gospel. So, actually maybe half step back. We were actually thinking about developing something ourselves as we were kind of seeing the need, and then providentially through a friend of a friend of a friend, we bumped into this group that was founded by a bunch of missionaries who felt like they had great training going overseas to share the gospel, and they came back to the United States and the churches here. They're like, well, the churches here don't seem to have that same skill set. So they're like, well, why don't we just teach what we've been taught somewhere else back to the church in the U.S., which I think is simplistically brilliant. And so in talking to them, we decided to partner with them. And because of the reputation and talking to them, their approach very much lines up with the things that we were already looking for, with the one additional piece that their thought was like, okay, have a self-replicating group. So start with a small group of people, and then that group, actually a couple of people out of that group train the next group and develop that group, and they're going to train the next group and develop that group. And we're like, we hadn't thought of that, but that seems actually pretty smart. So we've decided to partner with Exponent, and I want to share that publicly, like in the sense, because I think it's something that we have been working on for a while, and I'm really excited about this skill-based approach. We've been working with Exponent. They said for our first group, they gave us a set of criteria. Like, here's the people like they recommended. They want a diversity of age groups and backgrounds and personalities even going into that group. So we've kind of followed their guidance, and some invites have been sent out. We're kind of working on forming that first group. But I'm like super excited about this, not just because like I'm not creating something, but I think this is better than what we would have created. Like, they've really invested time and energy into this. So I think the first group will be starting in the first month or two, and they run about like 8 to 9 months, depending on like holidays. And it's about 2 meetings per month. So there's a learning meeting, and there's like a debriefing meeting. One's on via Zoom, and the other's in person. So it'll be about 2 commitments a month. So part of the reason I mentioned this is because this is something I'm really excited about. Like, this is going to take about a couple of years, I think, to kind of work its way through the church family. Doesn't mean that you can't be starting already, but also if you're really interested, you're like, hey man, like I'm really interested. I'd love to kind of talk to you about getting into like a group, whether it's this group or the next group. And even if you're not really interested, I'll probably be chasing you down anyway. So don't worry about it. You don't have to come find me. I'll find you. But I think this is something that as we look at our community, I think God calls us all to be missionaries. Like, He calls us all to be on mission. He calls us all to be part of sharing the gospel. That's not just like the pastor's responsibility or Josh, the Frederico's responsibility, the Pate's responsibility. That's our responsibility, and it's also our opportunity. Like, that is just amazing to see someone's life transformed by the gospel. And like, as much as I love people bringing them to me and say, hey Andrew, would you communicate that with them? Like, I mean, yeah, like, but like, I feel like I'm stealing all the privilege. So like, we want on the more individual level to be having this. So like I said, this will be going on. This will be kind of the first group we were running this year, essentially. I don't know fully when that second group kicks off. It kicks off partially the way through, but we will be communicating it. I just wanted to kind of let you know that even based on some of the feedback last update meeting, that kind of cemented in our hearts what we were already kind of working on, and I'm really, really glad to announce this partnership with Exponent. Part of the research we've done, even vetting this, we talked to other pastors and church leaders who are using this group already, and so we took our time with the research side of things, and we think at this point in time it's a really good fit for what we feel like God's calling us as a church to do, is to all be missionaries wherever God's put us. So very excited about that. Any questions about outreach side of things before we? Okay. We're going to jump to finances overview. Last time we kind of discussed some of the post-COVID, and I'm saying post-COVID like it was the dominant theme. And I know there's still some health issues going on, but sort of the post-COVID struggles, kind of the fallout of that. I'm really glad to announce that there's some substantial improvements in 2023. So very, very grateful for that. I think that's a couple of reasons. One, it's the ministry leads. We mentioned the shared services already. Really looking at kind of some cost savings pieces, anything we could do there. And not in any way trying to cut or impact ministry, but actually make sure that we're being the best stewards that we can be of the resources that God has given. And then also the other piece is the support of the church family. So both of those components we'll see differences in. So I have 2022 and 2023 up, I think, here. So you can kind of see 2022, 161 compared to 2023 was 170, and then expenses for 2022 was 169 compared to expenses for 2023 was 154. I'm rounding those numbers off. So a substantial move between the two. That's really encouraging. I'm very, very grateful to God, grateful to you, grateful for the ministry leaders, kind of everyone partnering together to kind of make that move possible. The one thing that net excludes is the principal payments. So accounting is, there's other people that are more capable of talking about accounting on it. But basically, if it's a principal, kind of goes through your balance sheet. So the principal payments put like a cash flow net of like negative $12,000 for the year. So obviously that's something that, as we're setting budget for next year and have budget set for next year, we're hoping to eliminate that negative 12 as far as the cash flow side of things. But we've been able to maintain reserves like above $100,000. And honestly, with one of that we could pay off, we could have eliminated that with using the reserves and paid off that monthly payment and broken even. But cash reserves seemed like a good idea. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to all of you. The response in giving, also the response in kind of careful stewardship, both I think have contributed to this. And obviously we give all credit to God for that, and we love to kind of keep that direction going. So good news good news here, cash reserves, continued positive trends are good news. So yeah, very, very, very grateful to God for those pieces. So yeah. Any questions on finances before we get to one more topic here? Obviously, we have more detailed. These are just, obviously, there's not every category broke out to 0 cents. So I'm rounding a little bit here. So we can send out more detailed reports if you're interested. We can send you the comparisons and everything. But I just rounded so it fit on the screen. Okay, leadership. One of the pieces that was talked about last meeting was the goal. We talked about a couple different goals, and so one of the goals was bringing on another elder, and a couple reasons for that. Care of the body was mentioned, and also just the ability to increase bandwidth. So I alluded to some situations that I couldn't go into detail on, but there's certain situations that you want multiple people addressing, and with the size capacity that we had, we didn't realize it until we were in them, but you're like, well, you can't really divide and conquer. There's certain things that were limitations. And so we want to care for the body well. We're commanded to care for the body well. And also there's bandwidth pieces, but sort of adding in the middle of that was a challenge. So I want to kind of just look at a couple of elder qualities or qualifications that we were looking at and sort of looking for. So first is scriptural. I think if we don't start scripturally, you're probably not starting in the right place. And there's two passages that primarily instruct us in this. And I say primarily because there's several other small components. But I want to just look at 1 Timothy 3. And I'm just going to read this. It says, "The saying is trustworthy if anyone aspires to the office of an overseer." Some translations use bishop here. This is, in my opinion, also interchangeable with pastoring or elder. He desires a noble task. Therefore, an overseer must be above reproach, husband of one wife, translation, I think this is even more like a one-woman kind of man. Sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own household well with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church? And he must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into the condemnation of the devil. Moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders so that he may not fall into disgrace, into a snare of the devil. So this is we talked about this morning, even looking at our own preferences versus the Word of God and submitting to the Word of God. So this is the first criteria that we were looking at. Other factors I think that came into mind as we were looking at is that we're looking for someone who is currently exercising that gifting, not someone who could be called up into it. So, what I mean by that is that you want someone to be an elder out of heart first and action first, not out of title first. And because if you give somebody a title, it doesn't actually change who they are. Like, shocking, I know, right? And so in looking at this, we're saying, well, who is already without being asked, without an official title, pastoring, shepherding, doing that. And then the other piece that was a factor was a commitment to the church body. There's a couple more, but the commitment to the church body is that like there's people that they shepherd, but sort of shepherd out of their own either to build a following for themselves or to gain praise, and it's. Yeah, I'll say so. And then we want the commitment to be to Jesus and to his church. And so that's something that we're looking at. And then the humility piece is significant. And so our goal was to find someone who's humble. And I asked a pastor years ago, how do you tell who's humble? It's not like a thermometer or, something like that. And he said, well, the two ways that he looks at humility is one, they're willing to serve in the small things, and two is they're willing to learn. And I've kind of modified that over the years. I like not just willing to learn because everybody says they're willing to learn, but committed to learning, so they're actually actively engaging in that. And so that humility piece is significant. And so that's one that we looked at there. And then probably the last factor that we thought of and processed through was sort of the stability of the church family. So it's been a chaotic couple of years. I don't know if you noticed that. And so we have not moved. We've understood the need for this as far as like a year and a half ago, but we were not moving fast because we wanted to move right and we wanted to move well. And so that was the, admittedly, ideally you want to move fast and well, but like I think because of the instability, we don't want to do. This is Jesus' church. It always has been. It always will be. So we're here to serve him, and we understand that the body's been through a lot, individually, collectively, over the last couple of years. And so we wanted to do what we could to add to the stability of the church. Now, this does not mean that there are not other individuals, and I want to say like this does not mean there are not other individuals that we see God's hand on, or that there's potential on, or that there's components. There actually is one of the pieces that we've also noticed. I mean, the evangelism was number one that we've been working on. We're also working on a leadership development program and curriculum on that. And so that is something that's actually in the works currently. And so we're excited about that, and that will be, we'll have more information coming out on that this next year. But we are working on that. We want to continue to develop the individuals in the body. But as we look through these, we pray for these. I'm happy today to propose to say the elders are proposing Kevin Lawson as an elder at GracePoint. I told Kevin I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying. My personal esteem and affection is huge. It's not most days you meet somebody as qualified as he is, and as humble as he is on that qualifications. And I know he probably hates me saying most of this stuff, but like, and his care for the body, for people, like no one asked him like to do that. He just does that because that's what Jesus has put in his heart, and so I couldn't be more thrilled to, like, I think in some ways as elders we're just trying to recognize what God's already done and already doing, not trying to create something that God's doing. So some of you might be like, well, I already thought he was an elder because he speaks a bunch. And yeah. So Kevin actually he's been a pastor in Maine a year or two ago. I don't know how long ago. A couple years ago. Okay. So see, I didn't want to throw out a number, but it was a couple years ago. And he's also been an elder in two other churches. But I think most importantly, to me, he's already been fulfilling that function here without that title. And certainly part of this conversation has been with Patty and as well. And there's extra demands on that. And we really know that's a family commitment as well. And so our appreciation is immense for even considering this. So for the church family, sort of the next, like, we're not making anything official today. Sort of what we want is the next steps is the 2 weeks. We would like just take a time of prayer and comment. So, we want this to be something that God's ordained. Like, we as an elder team believe that this is what God has. We've talked and prayed about this with the Lawsons, and they feel like that as well. But this is for the church family, and so we want 2 weeks of prayer, and we hope this is something that privately you'll be engaging in, that like you'll be praying over this. This is we all have a heart to submit to God's will and God's leading in this. And then I say comment, like if there are concerns or if there's questions, I would love to hear those. And like, so that's why we're giving it 2 weeks. So it's not something that has to like, I don't need a text this afternoon. In fact, I'd actually rather like you take some time to pray about it. But we do want to give that time there. And then I say we're announcing it, and we plan to announce it in mid-March. And part of the reason there's not an exact date on there is because I have one Sunday I'm away, and then Kevin travels a fair bit as well. So we'll find a time that after that 2 weeks, and we've had time to process all the pieces there. But mid-March, we look forward to announcing that. So, Kevin, is there anything that you wanted to say, correct me on, take back? Okay. Any questions for Kevin now? He's a brave man. Any questions for Kevin?
Yeah. Am I a what?
A Patriots fan.
Patriots fan. I want to be. This year it's been hard, but I just love seeing a good game. That's it. Yes, I do. Susie.
I don't have a question, but I have a thank you. And considering what we're looking at as far as characteristics of an elder are concerned, I think Kevin hit the nail on the head. He has answered a lot of questions for me, especially over the past year. He's always ready to talk to you. And I just want to let Kevin know that it meant a lot and it still means a lot. But he definitely has every single one of the qualifications that we pointed out. And decide if you want him.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Mark, Bruce, and then myself. Yeah.
Okay. Right, so that'll bring it to 4. And as he said, looking ahead, they want to work on developing a leadership training process, not just for elders, but for other kinds of leadership roles in the church as well. Yeah. Okay. That's one of the nice things about technology now. I mean, even when there's an elders meeting, Bruce is zoomed into the elders meeting so they can all have the conversation. That is a great thing.
Yeah, you guys left Zoom, but we haven't yet.
For myself, last year was a very busy travel time. I was gone almost 100 days out of the year. This year is not nearly as heavy, so I'm looking forward to not being away as much. There's always a few trips I have to do, but we do our best then to keep connected, and the technology is a huge help in that way. All right. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions, general questions related to that? Susie? Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, great question regarding like training for not just elders but for others as well. And I'd say two quick answers to that. I mean that is our heart's concern as well. I mean we all want to be more fully developed followers of Jesus. The men's group that I think Eric is co-leading that. That's a discipleship focused group. So there's some practical skills as well as theology kind of combined in that. So we're working that direction. I think even the evangelism piece is part of what we're actually pursuing on those pieces. Is that yes, like we are committed to like that. We want to be growing in our knowledge, and we also want to be able to grow in our application of that as well. And so those are pieces that like we are absolutely working on. And so those are a couple of the pieces you can see that already are in play, and that's something that we're continuing to develop. So been excited about the men's group. That I think that's a great step towards that. We've had other discipleship ones that we've run in the past, and I've liked them. I think this newer one is even a step forward. I think this is a good improvement. So we're constantly trying to get better at following Jesus and developing ourselves and each other to do so. So yeah, great comment. That's something we're actually collaborating with some other churches. So part of the conversation is how are other churches like developing these leaders, and we're getting resources from them, seeing what's worked for them, what they wish they've changed. Honestly, on the small group level, this is what Kevin's lived and breathed for most of his career and ministry. So like having him as a resource, like he already knows like a lot of what's going on in that sphere. So yeah, we are looking for the best ways of doing exactly what you're saying. So yeah, great comment, Susie. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So you're telling me we should talk to you about the next exponent group? Is that what you're saying? No, I mean I think that'd be some great. I'd love to have some conversation with you about that to see if there's ways that we can more effectively see what opportunities are there. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Pam. Yeah. No, and that's a great comment, Pam. I think so. I think part of what like we have the main objective and then sort of the how to accomplish that. And so I think there's pieces where this is like for the men's group, this is like, okay, we're trying this approach. Does this like work? And like the lessons we learn for the church body, we want to roll out like in a broader sense. So like we are like those are great comments. I mean, we don't want just the men or just the women or just the seniors to like have discipleship. Like no, we want the discipleship and evangelism to be like across the church body. So I think it's somewhat finding out. I mean, even we've played with frequencies of different groups and dates of different groups and like so we are trying to take the sort of the lessons learned and then we want to roll those out across the piece. So we're kind of experimenting on the men. Yes, but you're 100% right. The goal is to yeah. Yeah, the goal is to take those lessons learned and kind of spread them across the body. So, and then I think the other flip side of that, I say, okay, as the opportunities are there, then it's on us as individuals to step up and take advantage of them. Is the other piece, and actually commit to them because it's something like you don't learn discipleship in a week, or one seminar. So I think that's the other challenge is that okay, when the opportunities are there, it's like being like, yeah, I'm in, and I'm gonna be committed to that and learn the skills and develop in that. And that's we can't force that side of things. So, but I think if we all work together on that with the Spirit of God, we'll keep on growing there. So, any other questions? Awesome. Sounds good. This is if we did it right, it's recorded. So I'll send that out. And so if you want to rewatch anything, certainly any questions, I'm happy to talk afterwards. I would be we do ask that you seriously be praying these next like 2 weeks. Give any comments if you have any comments. Love to hear them as we prayerfully consider, and as the Lawsons prayerfully consider sort of that next step as well. So. Yeah, grateful for all of you, grateful to serve with you guys. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, we're grateful for your goodness to us. Thank you for the many ways in which we see your blessed hand on our lives. You love us, you care for us, you walk with us, and you invite us to walk with you. We thank you for the opportunity to be in a body, a diversity of gifts and ages and experiences, all designed to make us more into your image and to bring you glory. We thank you just for that joy of friendship and companionship. We ask that your blessing on your church family here at GracePoint and in churches around the community and around the world, that your gospel would go forth powerfully. We particularly pray just for these, for Exponent, that this would just be a real development in our church body's ability to effectively communicate the gospel, and that we'd see many come to know you as a result of that. We also just pray that you would give your clear hand of wisdom and direction as we consider Kevin as the next elder of GracePoint. We just ask that this process and this time just be one in which your hand and your guidance is abundantly clear to all. We just thank you for his willingness and Patty's willingness as well to consider this, and we just ask for your guidance, that you would be honored in all that's done. We pray this in your name. Amen. Thank you very much. There might be food leftovers. I have no idea, but if there are, help yourself.